All right, there we go. So welcome everyone to the kickoff session of the Spencer 2023 Summer Series. We host these virtual educational and networking sessions weekly during the summer. So that's every Thursday from 1 to 2 Eastern. And we'll switch back to a monthly schedule during the fall. My name is Tandeka Nomvete, and I'm the Director of External Engagement at Spencer. So if this is your very first time here with us, this is a very chilled and relaxed environment. We encourage all of you to take full advantage of this opportunity to learn as much as you can, to network with everyone that's in the virtual room today. And throughout the session, I'll be popping links within the chat box so that you can check out our website, so you can follow Spencer on LinkedIn and connect with all of the guest speakers that we have here today. So just a couple of housekeeping items as I'm letting more people trickle into the room. This session will be recorded, and the recording will be posted on our Spencer website within a couple of days. So we would love it if you would all turn on your cameras if you feel comfortable enough doing so. We'd love to see your beautiful faces. And this is a great time for you to put on a clean t-shirt and come in and do some virtual networking with us today. We do encourage participation. So if at any point you have any questions, please feel free to jump in and ask questions. The easiest thing to do for us is for you to just unmute yourself and ask the question. But if you don't quite feel comfortable doing that, I totally get it. Feel free to raise your hand. We do have the features within Zoom at the bottom, so you can just click on that, raise your hand, and your screen will pop up at the top and we can address your question as it comes in. So again, my name is Tandeka Nomvete. For those that have just joined us, I'm with the Spencer Educational Foundation. If you've never heard about Spencer before and are wondering, what are we? We are a nonprofit organization that supports students who wish to pursue careers within this industry. So that's risk management, insurance, actuarial science. And we do so through various programs like scholarships. So for any students that are here with us today, if you've not heard of our scholarship program yet, definitely check out our website and put that on your radar so you can apply. We have internship grants as well within the risk management sector. We have general grants that supports universities and other nonprofit organizations. We have curriculum development programs at universities throughout the country and Canada. And we have several other learning, experiential learning opportunities for students. So with that, we do have some super duper awesome guest speakers with us here today from Zurich. We have Ron Davis, who is a Spencer board member and the global head of customer management at Zurich. We have Jessica Aguilar, global head of talent acquisition at Zurich, and Alban Lalo, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, head of customer distribution and marketing at Zurich. So with that, Ron, I will hand it over to you.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Tandeka. Well, we're really delighted to be here with all of you, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We'll go through intros and give you a little more background on each of us. But before we do that, let's just set the stage a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So you know that the session itself, what we said is that we're going to be talking about the international world of insurance. So the world of international business and how does this fit in with insurance, and the kinds of exciting careers that are available to people that if you're in the insurance industry, not all insurers and not all parts of the business deal with international business. You can easily survive, and many insurers are regional or players that work within one country or one part of a country. Other ones are very specific in terms of the types of business that they do, which may be tied only to what happens in that country. And then there's other insurers like Zurich and other of our counterparts in other businesses, in other insurance companies that are global insurers that are all over the world. So in our case at Zurich, we operate in over 200 countries around the world. We've been in business for over 150 years. We just celebrated our 150th anniversary last year. So part of our origin, even though we're a Swiss-based organization, over 100 years ago, we went into the US and into Canada and in many other countries around the world. And so part of that is the fiber and the fabric of our business. And that means that many of our employees that work within Zurich have exposure to international business, that deal with customers that have requirements and needs that go beyond the country that they're operating in, either because they're selling either products or services to other parts of the world, or because they actually have manufacturing facilities and they have exposures or warehouses that are in other parts of the world, and they have assets they need to insure. So in all cases, there's many different dimensions to international insurance. And so what we talk about is that there's lots of different career opportunities available to you within that domain. And we'll talk about some of that as we go through the session today. And the other thing to highlight is we're talking about there's different ways you can be involved in international business. One part of it is that you could just work within an organization like a Zurich or an AIG or an Allianz or a Chubb or FM or other organizations, large organizations that have exposures around the world. And you're part of the US team, for example. And the US team that's supporting that global customer needs to interact with lots of other countries around the world. So you can have a role within the organization without necessarily traveling elsewhere or without having to live in other countries, and still be part of that international community and build your experience through that route. And as you gain experience, et cetera, then there's opportunities that as you have responsibilities with a customer, to follow the customer and their broker in some cases, to join them as they're dealing with their international operations in other countries of the world. So that may be business trips to join them and help achieve what you need to do. And there's other opportunities involving becoming an expatriate. And that's, in our case, Albin and I have both had that experience, and Jess is about to have that experience. So we'll talk about that. But we've lived and worked in different countries, and that's another way to engage in international business. So it's not one thing, what we're going to be talking about. It could be quite a bit broader than that, and quite a lot larger in terms of the opportunities. So the other thing is that for all of you, as you look at the insurance industry, the kinds of opportunities there are, people like to do business with people who know what they're talking about. So developing knowledge in whatever area of the business that you're in helps make you more valuable, because then you're more confident when you're talking about that particular area. So whether you're in underwriting, whether you're in claims, in engineering, in customer and distribution management, in actuarial, in IT, in meteorology, whatever the role you have in finance, there's many different roles that contribute towards what insurance companies deliver for their customers and their brokers. Whatever the angle is, you want to develop your skills, your knowledge, so that you have more confidence when you're dealing with these things. And as you have a core area of knowledge, you can add to it by expanding that. And that's the same thing in terms of the international arena. The more you know about the regulations, the rules of the road, what are the requirements if you're doing business in one country versus another, what are the rules in terms of admitted versus non-admitted insurance, et cetera. So as you learn these things, it makes you more valuable, because your colleagues and the others you do business with everybody needs help when they're doing something new. And if you have knowledge, you can help them as they're kind of pursuing their strategic journey. And all of this makes you more valuable, no matter what you're going to do in your career. So the more you develop your skills, your knowledge, both the technical skills, as well as the interpersonal skills and cultural skills, which is what Albin and Jess and I will talk about as well. And the last thing is to have fun doing it. Look, we love what we're doing. I love being in the insurance industry. I've been in it for a lot of years. I've loved all of it. I've had lots of different experiences. All of that has been very enriching, both personally and professionally. So so that's the story. So let's go to the slide where we kind of give the profiles. And then just as background, my background is my current role is I'm the global head of customer management for Zurich. So I work with all of our businesses around the world to help guide and frame, how do we execute, how do we deliver, how do we engage with customers, with brokers, how do we do segmentation, how do we look at profitability, customer satisfaction, et cetera. I'm based out of New York, and I'm a Canadian in hiding, and so I'm a dual citizen now. So I started in Canada, lived in France for 10 years, and now I've been in the US for a number of years.
So I was just thinking about in my head, I think the longest that I've been in one place was 6 years. So I've packed my bags multiple times over a 35-year career, always in insurance, as a broker for most of it, and in the last 10 years working for Zurich.
So Jess is our global head of talent acquisition. She's based in Schaumburg, but she's just got, she was the head of talent acquisition for North America. And she just recently got a big promotion. And she's now the global head of talent acquisition. And she and her family are in the process of relocating from the US to be based in Switzerland. So she'll be based in our global head office in Zurich. So she'll be able to share some of her insights and the experience she's going through. Jess?
So thrilled to be here today, and thank you for the kind introduction, Ron. I appreciate it.
So I don't know, did I miss anything, Jess? There's so much you could say about yourself.
I don't think so. I mean, in my current role today, I am in the process of relocating to Zurich. And at the beginning of this year, took on the head of talent acquisition for Zurich Insurance Group. Having formerly spent 4 years at Zurich North America, heading up the talent acquisition team there. So I believe there are some people on this call I've had the opportunity to interact with over the years as we've supported the relationship and partnership between Zurich and Spencer Foundation. And it's been wonderful, and looking forward to the time together today.
Terrific. Thank you, Jess. And so we're going to throw up the first poll question before we dive into the first area that Albin will lead us through. And while that's up, let's see. So Tandeka is going to throw it up there. There it is. So please take a minute and answer that. And in the meantime, I'll just say that, as Tandeka mentioned, I'm a long-term member of the Spencer Educational Foundation Board, and I joined in 2011. I've been involved in various roles on the board, and I'm currently the chair of the board governance and board composition committee. And it's really exciting to work so closely with Megan, with Tandeka, with Ken, and other members of the Spencer staff that are doing such a great job of trying to, one, connect us with students, connect us with the universities, connect us with insurers, brokers, and other players in the insurance industry, because all of us are similarly committed to trying to make sure that we're delivering greater awareness about the opportunities, just like we're talking about today. And so it's great for all of you that have joined us and that you're connected with Spencer. And make sure, if you haven't done so, follow Spencer on LinkedIn, connect with Spencer. It's a great way to stay abreast of what's going on and also develop your own personal networks, the same way you can connect with Albin, Jess, and myself. Okay, Tandeka, how'd we do?
Sharing the results right now. Can you see them?
So
Yep.
It looks like we have about 57% for communication. Second to that would be 23% for cultural competence. And then tied at 7%, critical thinking and learning agility, and empathy at 3%. So that's awesome. So there's no right answer for this, is the good news. It doesn't matter where you fell on that. Actually, all of these are key skills that you would bring that would be really helpful in promoting your professional success in some of the different international teams we're going to talk about today. So everyone is right. We will go ahead and transition on that note to talking a little bit about how those soft skills come into play in a few different scenarios that both Albin and Ron are going to share with us relative to some of the experiences they've had and that Ron teed up earlier this afternoon.
So this is my cue, Ron, right?
You got
Yes.
All right. So you touched on this a couple of minutes ago, Ron. So I think to sort of simplify the conversation and sort of directionally be as accurate as we can be, we sort of bucketed 3 paths to think about an international career in the insurance industry. And I've done all 3. So I started my career as part of an international team. That was way back when in Paris. And back in the day, I was basically on the receiving side of instructions that were given to me by a broker in New York. And I was servicing multinational mostly US firms that had operation in France. And so I learned the business by essentially doing what people that were 3,000 or 4,000 miles away from where I was telling me what to do. And so language, understanding the business. So insurance is a bit unique. I mean, it's not the only industry when I think about it, but insurance purchase is a very local experience. The way companies and or individuals buy insurance in any country in the world is not exactly the same way from country to the other, right? Even Canada and the US, Canadians think about insurance in a very, very different way than Americans. And Americans think about insurance a very, very different way than Europeans or Asians. And so when you think about an international career in international, the ability to sort of empathize, it's only 3%, but I'm still going to use the word empathize, but be curious about how people that are far away from you think about their customer that may or may not be your customer, right? That's very interesting. The other thing, and I think you learned this probably a little bit more on the broker side than on the carrier side, but every time you're in front of clients and you learn about your client's business, it has nothing to do with insurance, but learning about your client's business is extremely rewarding. And that's why I stayed as a broker for so long, is because I learned so much about all of the many customers that I handled in Europe, in the US, and other parts of the world. So you start, and by the way, you can go from international teams to expat to corporate traveler. You can start as an expat if you're very fortunate, right? And so this is not linear, right? You don't have to go start international teams, then a corporate traveler, then an expat, right? But I'm speaking for myself. I started in an international department handling international customers. And again, that was way back as a broker. And then as you grow a little bit more senior and a little bit more mature and confident, somebody's going to give you your own portfolio of customers. And then now you're starting to travel with your customer, maybe. And again, I'm just using my own analogy, my own experience, having been a broker for 25 years, is I traveled extensively with my customers. Most of my travel were actually traveling with customers. And you have breakfast, lunch, dinner, nonstop for days on end with the same individual. And you do that several weeks in a year. And it's a test of personality, right? You're the broker or you're the underwriter, and you just have to be able to maintain that relationship, to nurture that relationship, to build that relationship under very unusual and set of circumstances. You're in Tokyo, you're in Australia, you're in Brazil, you're in Paris, you're in London, you're in New York with the same individual, with the same client. How do you adapt to all this? That's what we mean by the corporate traveler here. You're traveling with a client, you're traveling for your organization, and you're meeting 1,000 people speaking all kinds of languages. Maybe you're lucky to speak one or two of these languages, but somehow you have to find a wavelength to communicate with all of these individuals. And that is your job. And if you cannot do this, then you are in the wrong job, right? Extremely rewarding. There's a bit of a cost, by the way, right? So personally, I was away from home many weeks at a time, right? So you know, as I said, everything has a bit of a cost, right? If you're going to be a corporate traveler and you're going to do this extensively, you're going to be away from your family, right? And it's not for everyone, and I'm not necessarily suggesting this to everyone, but if you can do this, and if you're having fun doing it, it's extremely rewarding. And then the third thing is, and that's what Jessica is about to experience, and one day somebody taps you on the shoulder and say, are you willing to go to Zurich, London, where? And now you have to pack your bags, you take your family with you, children, no children, whatever the case is. And now you're like moving to another country, still for the same company, still insurance, whether you're a global talent management person or an underwriter or client manager, you're going overseas for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I know people who were supposed to be on assignment for 3 years who ended up staying 20 years in the same place. That's happened before. So Jessica, we might not see you again for a long while. And that's a different type of experience, and that's extremely rewarding. And, you know, insurance, big companies, large brokers, and I know, again, I've only really worked for two companies, but both, whether it's Marsh or Zurich, have been tremendous in terms of offering opportunities for people who want to seize these opportunities. You don't have to do it if that's not what you want to do, by the way, right? But if you're tempted, and if you're curious, and if you're genuinely curious about the world, and now we're talking way beyond insurance, by the way, it's all about human connections, right? I will say that I've been extremely, extremely lucky in the last 35 years of being in this business to have traveled the world, to have met people that I would never have met before, north, south, east, and west. It's been tremendous. And if you just have a little bit of that temptation or that, you know, itching, I would really, insurance is a good industry to do that. It's really full of good people. So that's been my experience. And again, we were trying to sort of bucket three types of experience here, right? That's not necessarily capturing all kinds of experiences, but that's by and large, you're going to fall into one of these buckets if you're interested in an international career. I'll pause here and see if there's any questions. Ron, you've lived something similar to, if you want to maybe chime in.
Yeah, look, I think, Albin, you explained it really well. And I think in my case, I grew up in Canada and I started the exciting world of insurance like many people do. I didn't plan on it. I mean, some people go to school and pursue risk management insurance, which is fantastic. I didn't. I got a business degree, and when I graduated, one of the opportunities that came across that sounded really fascinating was to work for a multinational company, an insurer that had exposure to some of the largest companies in the world. I wanted to learn, and I liked the idea about learning about a lot of different businesses. And most of these companies were international companies. So what it meant is that if you want to help them, you need to understand, as Albin said, their business. You have to understand what drives their business. And if you're dealing with a company in whatever business it's in, then you have to, if you really want to understand them, you have to look at who are their competitors. Then when you're reading the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times or your local paper, whatever it is, you're looking at the business section, you're looking things up on the internet, you're trying to follow what's happening to that industry. What's going on? What are the driving forces? So that when you meet the customer or the broker, or even your colleagues internally, you're able to have interesting discussions. And that makes you interesting, because then people like to do business, they feel with people who have taken the effort to understand them, that they're passionate about what they're doing. And the international arena enables people like ourselves to, and all of you, to help differentiate yourself, because there's lots of talented people in the world. A lot of people are very talented, and it's like anything, whether you're looking at our business in the insurance industry, or you're thinking of musicians or songwriters or chemists or construction workers. At the end of the day, there's lots of talented people. What separates those who get opportunities from those who might not get as many opportunities? Part of it is good fortune and luck. You got to be at the right place at the right time. But you can help contribute towards your good fortune and luck by putting a bit of effort in and trying to develop more skills and knowledge that make you a bit unusual. And so by having this international experience, not everybody has it, not everybody has a passion for it, but the more you learn about how business is done in different parts of the world and how do you execute it, how do you actually deliver it, not just talk about it, all of that helps you differentiate yourself. So that's what I did. As I got involved, I knew nothing really about it. And as I learned about it and I was with more experienced people, I asked a lot of questions, and I really tried to pay attention and watched when they were dealing with negotiations or things to understand, well, what are they doing? And why did they do that? And when the customer asked them this, why did they answer this way? How come they didn't just say, yeah, we can do that? And all of this you learn is about managing expectations, about not over-promising. You want to simplify things, but you don't want to make it simple if it's actually very complex. You want to explain it properly. And then people feel that if you're guiding them well and you understand what's going on, then they start to trust you more. And as you trust each other more, you can develop deeper relationships. And all of that helps you be successful. So that's what I applied myself to over the years. And as I did, I never really had a plan to end up in France, but I eventually ran the Canadian operations for another insurer, for Factory Mutual or FM Global. And when they were expanding their business in Europe, they asked me to move to France to set up new operations in a number of countries in Europe. So I convinced my wife. We moved and lived in France, which was supposed to be, as Albin says, a 2 to 3 year assignment. And then I was asked after a couple of years, would you stay 5 years? We said, we talked about it. We said, yeah, this is great experience. So we stayed 5 years. Then at 5 years, our FM merged and consolidated a number of companies. So then they asked me to stay another couple of years to consolidate the group. And after 7 years, I'd been with the group for 19 years with FM. I got approached by Zurich for a very interesting role that really intrigued me. So I decided to join Zurich. But Zurich wanted me to stay in Europe. So I stayed another 3 years in Europe. And after 10 wonderful years of being a nomad and traveling all over the place, and I was responsible for part of my career for 12 countries in Europe, then I became even more global in what I was doing. So all of these experiences were great. And then I relocated to the US, where I've continued to have my global role, but used all these experiences. So as now in my role today, as I'm dealing with all the countries around the world and all of our business colleagues that are leading and managing and initiatives everywhere with our customers and brokers, I have a sense of how it works because I experienced coming in thinking probably a bit overconfident, thinking I really understood how things worked. And I was ready to tell my colleagues, oh yeah, do a strategy this way or do it that way. And it's very humbling when you are dealing with different cultures in different parts of the world and a lot of talented people who are telling you, no, that's not the way we do it here. So you have to actually listen and you have to decide, when do you fight a battle and when do you say, you know what, we're going to do it the way you think is best. All of these things at the end of the day make you a better business person. It develops your business acumen. That's an essential thing no matter what you're going to do in your career, to have better business acumen, more cultural understanding. All of these factors make you a more valuable employee. It means you can work with people around the world on your own team and have better empathy with them and better connections because you get what's going on. You know how to better communicate what's going on without coming across as arrogant or imposing. On the other hand, if you're going to confront somebody or you're going to disagree with somebody, you have a better idea of how do you do it in an effective way. So I'll kind of stop there, Albin. You may want to share, Albin, some of your experiences where you had kind of either a cultural awakening or a business experience that kind of, opened things up for you.
Yeah, God, I have plenty of stories. Some I can't really share, but I'm going to share those that I can share. Things have changed a lot, but for a very long period of time, insurance was a regulated, and it's still in some countries, a very regulated industry. I remember my first trips to South America, and that was a long time ago. In Brazil, when it comes to commercial insurance, there was only one reinsurer. It's called the IRB, and had a monopoly, and you couldn't get money out of the country, right? So premiums you were paying in Brazil stayed in Brazil. This is back when there was hyperinflation in Brazil. And if you wanted to have exception to these rules, you had to go in front of the regulator. And there was a couple of people, this is back in Rio de Janeiro. And I remember I was in my late 20s, and you basically were confronted with a regulator and having to explain that your American client or French client or UK client needed to have a portion of the premium ceded back out of the country. And there was very strict regulation about that. And so you just learn all of a sudden to negotiate with a bureaucrat, quote unquote, not a client, somebody who you don't have any leverage over, right? Somebody who owes you nothing and you need his help in a bad way. And you learn a lot when you're in this room with the regulator and this is your first time and you have to plead, beg, do whatever you need to do with your client sitting next to you to say, can we have a portion of that premium seeded back out to the country? And sometimes it would work, sometimes it didn't work, right? So, you know, Ron used the word humility. You do have to be humble, because just because it works one time doesn't mean that it's work all the time, right? And the individuals that you have in front of you that you're probably not going to see again ever, right? Or maybe you'll see 2 or 3 years from now, right? That's a different type of relationship that you're building than with colleagues that you see every day, right? Or with brokers or underwriters that you interact on a daily basis. And stories like this in China, back when there was a monopoly. So lots of stories about negotiating deals where basically you're facing someone who's neither a client, not a broker, not an underwriter, but has a lot of control over what you and your customer can do. So eye openers in many respects.
Those are great. I see there's a couple of people who put their hand up. So
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Pendek.
Karan, maybe let's start with you if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Sure. First of all, my name is Karan Sani. I am a risk analyst intern here at Bonaventure in the Washington, D.C. area. Ron, Albin, and Jessica, I appreciate you guys for coming on and speaking to us today. But I had a question. So I know Ron mentioned he kind of not fell into the industry, but fell into the role, into the job. He didn't really go into it thinking he was going to be working in insurance. So my question is, how can I essentially get noticed if I'm interested in a role in insurance or even just risk in general?
Well, I'll start off and just say that, look, when the insurance industry, and Jess will talk a little bit about Zurich shortly, and maybe she'll add some comments here as well. The insurance industry needs talent. Okay, so there's the great thing about our industry and our company and other of our peer groups in the industry is we're actually, through thick and thin, through good periods and bad periods, we're a steady employer. And businesses in the economy need insurance for it all to run. And so the good thing is that if whatever you've done so far in terms of your scholastic activities, your extracurricular activities, your hobbies, whatever it is that has made you who you are, Karen, and other people on the call, that's your brand and your profile so far. The more you can develop your soft skills and be able to explain and articulate, who are you? What are you looking for in your career? Why do you want to join us or whatever the company you're gonna? So by doing the research on the company, by thinking it through, by saying I'm really find this interesting or that interesting, and I'd love to develop my knowledge and skills in this area or that. People want people that are passionate, that are interested in working with them, that are committed, have energy. And if you convey these kinds of things in whatever way is your personality, your style, your background, because it takes all kinds. We have people of every nationality and every part of the world you can imagine. And that's part of what we think brings us diversity, inclusion, makes us interesting, makes us a great company to do business with, because we have employees that represent the populations we're doing business with. I don't know, Jess or Albin, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would just add that, Karen, I think you have to be willing to do some things that others aren't willing to do necessarily, right? So Ron used the word, there's plenty of very talented people in the US, in this industry, and around the world. So you're just one of, newsflash, you're just one of like millions of people. But if you're willing to do certain things, and by that I mean, this is why I was saying earlier, you need to pack your bags, right? If you're willing to do certain things, especially if you're in your 20s, go someplace, learn a new language, go back to school. I went back to school twice after my bachelor's degree. Twice. So learning, continuous learning, and it had nothing to do with insurance, by the way, right? Continuous learning and taking a bit of a risk. If you want to, and then If you want to be a property underwriter, a property broker, or a casualty underwriter, a casualty broker, there's no shortage of these guys in the country, like gazillions. They're not all necessarily very good, but that's not a talent that the industry is lacking, right? If you know how to do something, if you have a certain education, or if you're willing to take a little bit of risk with your career, packing your bags and going overseas, for instance, now you're like in a very, very much smaller bucket than everybody else, right? So you have to find what that bucket is for you, right? You have to find what it is that you can do, are willing to do, that fewer people want to do in the insurance industry. And then take the hill. I got questions from Hannah and Taylor. I think Taylor was
well, wait a second. Now Jess is our global talent acquisition
Yes.
person. So Jess, what do you say?
So I would say, Karen, you're doing something today that I would say is a good idea for someone looking to get into the insurance industry, right? You're getting more knowledge, you're networking, building your network, I think is always key no matter what you want to do. And I think the more exposure that you get to what you want to do, you'll find something you're passionate about, you'll meet people, you'll share that passion with them. I find the best way to get an opportunity is through people, because jobs are for people. You get jobs through people. So the more people you know, and the more people who know you and are familiar with you and what you want to do, the more opportunities come your way.
That's great. Who's next?
Fantastic. Yeah, so Taylor is up next. Go for it.
Sounds good. Thank you for coming in to present to us today. I'm Taylor. I'm an actuarial intern at Aetna CVS Health working in enterprise risk management. And my question is in regards to finding international roles. If you don't know a foreign language or you're unfamiliar with the culture, is that a hurdle, or would that put me or anyone else at a disadvantage?
Jess?
So someone once told me a joke, and I'm going to share it. And it was, what do you call someone who knows multiple languages? A polyglot. What do you call someone who knows 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call someone who knows 1 language? American. I can tell the joke because I'm American. I think it's really culturally a good idea when you move to another country to ingest the language, to ingest the culture, and really to make an effort. But would I say it's 100% something you have to know? You don't. It will make life a little easier, right? And over time, making the commitment to at least learn it, I think is a really good idea. But I don't think it's a hurdle that can't be overcome. In some areas, maybe a little more difficult than others. But what you'll find is that, and I'll use Zurich as an example. If you walk into our corporate headquarters, I couldn't begin to tell you how many different languages could be spoken there, but everyone speaks English. So it's not a deal breaker, but it's a good idea to learn another language, at least to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Albert.
No. I totally agree with Jessica. It's again, it's all these little things that at the margin are going to make you a more likely pick than somebody who's like doesn't speak any languages. That's not a deal breaker, right? But if you're like everybody else, but you speak 2 languages, at the margin, you're going to get the second look, right? And yeah, it's never too late to learn a language, right? You can learn a language tomorrow, right?
And I would say that, look, the other thing in all of this is that English is, as Jess said, we are an international company. In Germany, most of our teams, if they have a team meeting, they're usually speaking German.
Yeah.
If they're in France, they're speaking French. If they're in Italy, they're speaking Italian. But when you have a mixed group and we have a global call, we have those calls in English. And so there's many roles, as both Jess and Albin said. I would say that the main thing is, as your case, Taylor, you're an actuarial person, to develop your skills, to develop your knowledge so that it's transferable, that you can perform that either in a larger stage, either in a different way to help another country. And the more you have acumen and you develop your knowledge as to how do other actuaries, if you want to stay in actuarial, How do they get their jobs? How do people who have an actuarial background who have moved to other countries, what were their opportunities, and learn from them, network with them, as Jess said, through LinkedIn or elsewhere, or within the company you're with, to just see. And then through examples and by reaching out to other people, by demonstrating that curiosity, you really help yourself, because then people will see you're interested. And then that may create opportunities, but you have to have some knowledge for all of you. Like Albin was saying, you can kind of get fortunate at the beginning of your career and land into something that propels you quickly into international opportunities. But for many of you, and most of us, and myself included, I started by working in a country on international opportunities. And as I developed my knowledge and my skills, etc., one thing led to the other. So I was always looking for more opportunities, but I was open-minded about whether it would be this kind of opportunity or that kind of opportunity. I loved insurance. I loved dealing with customers. So I knew that that's going to guide what I'm going to do. I want to stay connected to customers. So as long as you know what's your area of passion, what are you good at, and what might a company value, and then you think about how to round out your skills and your capabilities and your knowledge.
Yeah, these are fantastic questions. And I wanted to throw out quickly before we pivot over to Hannah, to your point earlier about moving to the country. From my experience, like, it is so much easier to learn the language once you're in the country, right? So pack your bags, move over to the country. Like, when you are surrounded by the language, if you're walking down the street and English is no longer an option, right? It is amazing how your brain will just open up, right? Because you kind of go into this survival mode and you're like, all right, I need to get from point A to point B. How do I do this, right? And it is amazing how your mind will just open up and you'll start to pick it up. You'll pick up that second or third language. So Hannah, please go for it. Ask your question.
Yes, hi, I'm Hannah. I also want to thank you all for being here and answering all our questions. I know you mentioned the importance of humility, especially in conversations and negotiations. I'm just wondering if that's like recognizing whether what you think is right is actually not the best thing in the situation. Is that something that just develops through practice, or do you, like, with this skill and other skills, do you do role playing? Like, what are the ways in which you learn to recognize that? Or is that just something that comes through experience?
Alvin, do you want to dive in?
So, Hannah, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you, so humility, so you're in a negotiation, and what are...
Yeah, I think you mentioned, like, if you're in a meeting and you realize, okay, maybe something that worked once isn't going to work this time, does that just develop through the conversation you're having with these people? Like, maybe different cultural values are coming into play?
Yeah, Hannah, you learn how to think on your feet quickly, right?
That's what I was wondering, if it's like
yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of time for introspection and reflection, right? Because this isn't a cultural visit, right? You're in a business meeting and you're transacting a deal, and very quickly you read the room. I mean, it takes the first meeting, you're just like an infant, like in the jungle, right? But over time, you do build those skills and this ability to read people, and you prepare a little better, right? So you talk to people and you have a little bit of, who's this guy or this woman that I'm about to meet? What has she done before? So you become better at this, right? But there's always an element, and that's one of the beauties of, I think, of this business, insurance, and being with clients in particular, right? Is every situation is going to be a little different, right? Every client wants something a little different, right? And the person that you meet, that you're dealing with across on the other side of the table, is different, and is looking for something different than what you're looking for. So then you learn how to negotiate. Then there's like basic negotiation skills, and then you compound this with negotiation overseas. But yes, you do learn on the fly, and you make mistakes, and then you try not to repeat the mistakes, right?
I think following that, the thing, Hannah, in terms of the whole humility thing, and whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives, or all of us on the call, the question is, do we remain teachable? Yeah. If we think we're perfect at whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you look at relationships you have with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, with your parents, with your friends, and in business, it's the same thing. And if you go, I'm right, you're wrong. And if there's no way to have a common ground and be able to kind of tone things down and find ways to just keep engaged and keep the conversation going, all of that requires a bit of humility, because maybe you are right and maybe the other person is wrong. But the question is, are you going to get the outcome you want by forcing an issue and getting into a big battle? And I think all of these things allow you to use your, as Albin said, you learn from experience, and often from bad experiences, because you realize I could have done that differently. And that's part of humility. It's learning from experience. It's remaining teachable. It's being curious.
Yeah.
It's about listening to other people and really trying to understand what are they trying to say, versus in most situations, what we see is most of us as humans are preoccupied about what we want to say. And we're waiting for the opening, and we keep going, okay, I want to say this, a great line, or this is my big idea. So you're not really listening really to what the other person's saying, because you're so focused on what you want to say. And the more you develop those skills and the soft skills to do it, that's part of differentiation too, because people will enjoy working with somebody and engaging with somebody that seems to show interest in them, instead of being only focused on what they have to say. All of these things are part of the equation.
And Jessica, I know Mackenzie has a question, but Jessica I was thinking about an analogy, right? So sports analogy are quick, but when you work overseas or when you travel overseas extensively, you play away games all the time, right?
Yeah.
And Jessica is about to embark in the next 3 years playing away games all the time. Not at home. She's not going to be able to come home and say, talk to her friends and whine and like, no, she's going to be in Zurich with a bunch of people who speak Germans or quasi-German, and she's going to be on her own, away from home, and every game is an away game. And that is personally, that is from a human experience, that makes you much, much stronger than people who play home games all the time.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah. Mackenzie?
Can y'all hear me? I'm not.
Yeah.
This might.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Well, my name is Mackenzie Hamline. I'm interning with the Dairy Farmers of America in their corporate risk division, and my question's a little specific to Alban. You talked about working with Marsh McLennan for 25 years. I recently worked with them, and I wanted to know what was the experience of having a long career in the broker side of this business.
If I had to do it all over again, I would do exactly the same thing, right? So let's assume that Jessica is not on this call here for 5 seconds, right? Being a broker, by definition, puts you in the middle between a client and an underwriter. And so it is a unique position, right? You talk to customers every day, and then you talk to markets, right? When you're an underwriter, it's hard to talk to a customer because the broker is always between you and the customer most of the time. And when you're a client, well, you talk to the broker, but it's difficult. You don't talk to the underwriter. So in terms of understanding all of the aspects of this business, the relationship side of it, my personal bias, and it is a bias, is starting your career as a broker. And it takes a special DNA, right? It's not for everyone.
Right.
Just like being an underwriter is not for everyone either, right? So it just takes a certain type of people, right? But if, like I said, for me, the 25 years that I spent at Marsh, I've learned so much, and it was the best, not the best experience, because the last 10 years at Zurich have been phenomenal, right? But in terms of getting to where I eventually got to in my career, Marsh was just excellent for that. But I packed my bags all the time. Every 3 years, I had a different job, and I was going to a different city, right? So I didn't play a lot of home games. I was away games all the time.
And look, it's interesting because I actually interacted with Albin 30 years ago. He and I worked together on the same customer when he was a broker in Paris, and I was leading the operations for the other insurance company I was working with. And so I know he was great as a broker. I've always been on the insurer side, and I can tell you, while I respect Albin's career path and how it's worked, I've been in the insurance industry, working for an insurer in my career. It's been phenomenal. So I think there's many paths. There's not one route. Now,
Right.
because we're going to run out of time, I want to make sure, Tendeka, can you throw up the next question? And Jessica, let's move to your slides.
Sure.
And this way you can share, there's a lot that I think Jessica will share, which will answer a lot of interesting things for all of you in terms of positioning. And Jess, over to you.
Right. So Tendeka's running the poll. Go ahead and choose your answer. What percentage of skills in the workplace do employers expect to see change or be disrupted over the next 5 years? Which I think ties in really well to some of the questions we've just heard from each of you. So thank you for that. Tendeka, can we get the results there?
All right. Sharing the results right now.
All right, so I love this. So the results are 58% of you believe the answer is 44%. And actually in the 4th year of the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, employers did estimate that 44% of skills would be disrupted in the next 5 years. But for the next grouping of you, which was close to 30% who chose 50% as your answer, you're not wrong, because similar numbers were reported in the 2023 LinkedIn Global Talent Trends report. And so basically, a quick touch on this is, what does this mean for you? It means that as technology and digitization continue to grow, to evolve, and the focus on skills and on learning agility continue to come to the forefront for employers and employees, that's going to change what things look like for you. There are going to be stronger net job creations and things like green jobs. And there are going to be a more succinct focus from employers on individuals with really strong, they're looking for strong analytical thinking as well as critical thinking. So I really loved some of the questions about humility and how do we use these skills to kind of navigate our careers, because I think what the headline here is that this translates into experiences that you can start thinking about, whether you're in a program of study right now, or maybe you're already out in a full-time job. How are you integrating some of those skills and some of those things that you're looking to skill up on and build on, or that maybe you already feel are a strength for you, and really showcase those in addition to your experience when you're interviewing for things like internship experiences or full-time jobs. You know, really think about how you're honing those every single day and how you show up at school or at work, and how you're embracing skilling in those areas. Because I think the headline from what you heard from Ron and Alvin as well is that, yes, they gained experience and knowledge on the job, but that was complemented by having the skills to really be successful in performing the roles that they were in and continuing to grow. And so, in the spirit of continuing to grow, growing your career is something that means a lot to us at Zurich. I liked the question I heard from Karan earlier about how do I get into insurance? Obviously, there are a lot of different ways you could get into an insurance career. At Zurich, sustainability is also kind of the way we treat our employees, how we support them in growing their talents, getting new skills, refreshing their existing skills. We really take a lot of pride in recruiting our internal talents and providing great career opportunities and growth to them. But that said, we also balance that with offering a really wide array of entry-level opportunities and internships. And so this is just a really high-level view of what some of those opportunities might look like at Zurich. And some of these require a college degree, and others you can actually earn one while you're in the program. So for instance, Zurich's apprentice program, Zurich North America actually launched this in January of 2016. It's grown in a huge way since then. It was the first of its kind to be certified by the U.S. Department of Labor in our industry. And Zurich apprentices get to work and earn while they learn. So for those who have few or no college credits, they would probably pursue an associate's degree apprentice program. For those who've completed 2 years of college, they would pursue our newer bachelor's degree apprentice program. And again, they earn full-time salary and benefits, including health insurance, paid time off, plus the tuition coverage. And we have apprentices across the US with experience in multiple areas of our business. A lot of times people come to that from high school. Other times they're transitioning from the military, maybe even changing careers. In the middle here, we have our internship program, which typically looks for rising juniors and seniors, as well as MBA candidates. Really looking for in that a willingness to work hard and to learn. And this is Zurich, but honestly, anywhere you're looking, this is what people are looking for. Really strong written and verbal communication skills, excellent time management skills, flexibility, the ability to work independently, to be self-motivated, be strong academically, and something that I think Ron and Alvin both shared earlier, that curiosity. You know, when you're in an internship, you're really being curious, you're learning. It's a formalized and structured program. You're getting real work assignments, but you're also getting to work with leaders in our industry who have been doing these jobs and understand the work and understand the environment, the ecosystem of the insurance industry. So being curious and really being open to learning is important as well. And then finally, our training program. So Zurich offers several really prestigious training programs. Our foundational talent training programs develop new grads and early careerists. It's at an accelerated pace though. Typically in areas of focus like actuarial, claims, finance, risk engineering, underwriting, and the programs last anywhere from 1 year to 3 years. It is full-time work. Our trainees are introduced to our Zurich Way framework within their specific areas. What's kind of cool is they participate in something called Crossover Week. And in Crossover Week, it's a 1-week experience where they really get program experience that focuses on Zurich as a company. They come together, they understand our business units, kind of the interrelationships between areas, and really start creating their own personal brand as a professional. So you're creating your personal brand now, and you're going to continue to hone and refine that at every step of your career. And part of doing that is through networking, which we really do make an intent to offer in all of our Zurich programs, the opportunity to network with other colleagues, with senior leaders, with other industry experts, and really have a fully rounded experience. And then move you into the next step of your career. Like I said, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is the opportunity to move talents internally and really see them grow, and be a Ron Davis who's spent so many years growing through this organization and contributing in so many different ways.
That's right.
That's an absolute path. So just a little bit about us, and thank you. I hope this has been a really positive experience and that you'll connect with us on LinkedIn to learn more.
Fantastic. Yes, and I put the links in the chat so everyone can connect with you on LinkedIn. So thank you all. If you join me in a round of applause or a virtual round of applause, thank you so much to Ron, Jessica, Alban for hanging out with us for an hour during this session. For all the students that are here with us today, as you're aware, during the summer, we host these sessions on a weekly basis. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Our presenting company will be Amwins, and we're going to talk about resume tips and tricks as well as interviewing tips and tricks. So again, to Ron, Jessica, and Alban, thank you so much for your time. The session is recorded. We'll post it on our website in a couple of days, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandeka. And thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciated it. Take care.
Great to see you. Bye.